basic dog check, and since you're new to the job, I'll try to explain in detail why and what exactly we're doing. So usually the first part of the med check usually is determining whether the dog is in a good condition, or condition score. That's a medical term, but you use it. You say it here as whether the dog is fat, skinny, or small, and then that's to to decide how much food it will get next week, the following. And usually you can tell that by just looking at dogs from the distance, and just looking how it walks, and if it's like sort of if it's a dog like Grumpy, so you can see that she has like a very lean figure, and when you look from her from that location, you can see that she has like a waist, and if the dog is fat, then usually when you look at him from above, it looks like a little barrel on 4 feet, and you can't really discern between between where the ribs end and where the butt starts. The other thing, if you're like quite unsure, if you don't feel safe and confident by just looking at the dog, or you don't know the dog that well, because they're like dogs of different like genetics and different body build, and there are some dogs that look fat, but in fact that's just how they were born, and some dogs are always look skinny and bony, but again that's more to do with genetics and rather than feeding. You can always do a more in-depth check. That's not always, but when you don't feel confident. So one way to find out is like slide your fingers over the dog's spine. If you feel the ridges of the spine, if they're not like somewhere in between, not too prominent, but you can still feel them, that's a good sign. The next checkpoint is this part between the hip bones. So when you slide your fingers through the hip bone, so through this groove, there should be a little bit, and then that's a good sign. If it's like too deep, you'll know. And if the dog is like fat, then usually the fat accumulates here, and then your hand like goes like over, like it's like nice and rounded. Another way is slide your fingers over the dog's ribs. It's also good to feel a bit of ribs, but not too much, and not too less. So, but this kind of knowledge, I mean, that comes with practice, and when you have learned a bit more about the dogs in general. The third way, which is not very, in my opinion, not very consistent, is grabbing the fur on the side and just checking how much there's skin and how much there's fat. And there's a lot of fat, then sort of its skin feels like quite thick. In Grumpy's case, well, she doesn't have much fat at all here, so it's nice and lean. But it's not always a rule, especially with fluffy dogs, because they have very thick fur, and you can't always even reach their ribs, etc. So after you have assessed her body score, and I would say that Grumpy is fine, so she's currently on small dog, then I would say that she could remain on the small dog. She could also, yeah, I would say she's a bit of a borderline dog, so she could go up a bit, but let's keep her on small dog for another week. Then you go to the next step is an overall check. Usual position is like this. It's like a bit more quicker, but also it depends on the dog. If the dog is like very shy, or when you have him like this and he's like crouching, and you literally have to like force his head up or his paws up just to have a check, then you can always modify as well as you check everything you need. And so the step is ears. You sort of open them up, and in Huskies I've observed quite often they have quite long fur here, so you just have to part it away just to see inside what's going on. And what you are looking for is any signs of inflammation. So for instance, if the skin is very red or irritated, or there's some discharge coming out, and or there are like maybe some cuts or bites in the ear, which is not uncommon at this place. And usually when a dog has ear problems, then it's quite obvious, because they're very uncomfortable around the ears. First, they won't let you touch it. They're like, or you'll see them like shaking their head and scratching the ears. So these are the first markers that there's something wrong. And but most of the time, if it's like Grumpy, who is pretty chill about me manipulating her ears, it's pretty much a sign that she's okay. The next step, you look in the eyes. You check those lids, upper and lower. Some Grumpy is not a good example, but some dogs might have some warts, some clog glands, and will appear like little bumps along the lids. Hey. Or there might be also some dogs have old fighting wounds, and there might be like cuts or anything else. Then you check the area around the eyes, if there's like any discharge. In light dogs it appears like a brown streaks, and then you can determine whether it's like to excess or it's just one ear or another. A good thing is to check what kind of discharge it is. Either it's like a liquid, or there's like this what could you call it here, gunk. How it's medically correct would be a mucose discharge with some. And then the last thing is good to check if you suspect that there's something wrong with the eye. There's a lot of discharge, or the dog seems to be irritated. It's good to check the cornea against the light, just to see if there are like any lesions. Tog is a good example. He has a light patch, which is scar tissue. That's not usual. Then you check the muzzle, both sides, what's going on. It seems to be fine. Dogs usually sometimes they have like small bite wounds on either side. If they live as a cage maze, and they're prone to be like quite stressful and one turns with quite scar tight. Next step is checking the nose. So you check the upper part, because some dogs get these sunburns or sand allergy, how you call it. And then there's like, you see pink skin and sort of flushing, and it's usually a marker that shows something not going on. As you see in Grumpy's case, this is how nose should look like, the upper part. Then you check if there's any discharge. The same case with the eyes, so she doesn't seem to have any. Some dogs might have a bit of snot, but if it's like an abscess and you see that it's like really pouring out, something is pouring out and the dog has difficulty breathing, then it's definitely not how it should be. And also some dogs tend to have dry noses, again very dry, but meaning that they're like you see cracks, etc. It's again something to pay attention to. Next step, step on the leash, is you check the mouth. So you first start by feeling lips on either side and checking the status of the teeth. You check for plaque or any broken teeth. How worn are they? And yeah, real general status. Maybe sometimes if it's like a broken tooth, if it's painful or not. Then now what I like to do is also lift the lip up and then quickly check what's going on either side, because it's also in a site where it can be like small lesions or bite wounds or anything. Grumpy seems to be fine. And then we open the mouth. You can, and just to look inside. Again, most of the time there's nothing inside, but again, that's the reason why you do it, is if the dog is a chewer, likes to chew kennels or bones or etc. If there are like any pieces of wood or bone dislodged between the teeth. Sometimes you can check just for, like, if the dog has been said to be uneasy with eating, then you just again check the mouth thoroughly. If there's like anything, any sores, any wounds, it's within the mouth, that makes it hard for him. So when you have done that, you check the underside of the neck, part the fur at random places, just to check the skin, how it goes. And then this turn is for the neck. So what you do, you lift the collar up from its like usual position, and you check underneath. And this is especially important when you do it on the dogs which are in the circles, because there's a tug on the collar and the constant movement. So, and some dogs might get collar sores, so meaning the first signs of the collar sores is the first starting to become really thin, then there's a bare skin, and the next step, which is an actual sore, is like a bruising or wounds, which is not nice at all. Also check the upper part, because again it's a nice spot for skin infections, also for collar sores. So and if it's a puppy or a young dog, it's always good to check if the collar is not too tight, because they tend to outgrow their collars faster than people make them severe. And if you think that the dog's collar is like too tight, you just loosen it up a bit, and then you try to put it back in the position, and then see how it goes. Then the next step is you can slide your fingers through the chest and the lower part of the neck, just to feel the dog, if there's anything. You can part the fur a bit, just to check the skin, any dandruff, any signs of parasites, any kinds of skin infections or inflammation or whatever. Then you go to the leg, and usually when you check the forelegs, the most important points to check are the elbows, and you can see in Grumpy's case that she has a bit of a pressure sore. And then you check the underside of the paw. It's the first is the paw pads. If everything easy, if everything is okay, no cracks. Then you check the nails, quick look if they're not broken, how long they are. In Grumpy's case, they would need a bit of a clipping. Hey, easy. Then you check between the pads. What's what's going on? It's in a wet weather. It's a nice place for yeast infections, etc. So again, if the dog is like chewing his feet or appears to be limping, it's good to check there. Grumpy, don't be a baby. Hey. And then, of course, you also check from the above. Again, but between the pads and then the nails again. So she seems to be fine. Then you check the inner part of the foot. Don't try to break it apart, but just a bit. So turn it a bit, just so that you can see what's going on. Some dogs might have pressure sores here and here, or on these parts, or next to the toes, up here. And then you go to the other foot, and you do pretty much the same things as on the first one. Okay. Then a quite new thing what I tend to do is like you again slide your fingers down her rump, her chest and the belly, and especially belly. You can just try it first. You try before even looking at it. You try to feel if you can find any like lumps or bumps or anything that shouldn't be there. And then you'll turn the girl around. Then you check the back. You lift the dog up. You can do it like this. But I find this a bit easier, and it's also easier with dogs, and especially when it's about the male dogs. If you sort of put pressure on their penis, it's quite uncomfortable, and they are very uneasy. If you do it like this, like on the side, it's much less uncomfortable and much easier for you to do the check, because the dog is not squirming. And on the hind leg again, you do the same check as you did on the forefoot again. Check all the paw pads, all the nails, back and forth. Check if there are any lesions. For instance, Grumpy had a skin infection here, so you can see that the fur is a bit shorter. So again, on the hind leg, places for pressure sores more often are on these spots, then can be anywhere above here, on the ankles and on the hocks. So it's always worth checking them, because that's where when the dog lies, that's where that's the part of the skin and part of the foot that will be most in contact with the ground. Again, you do the same on the other foot. Then you lift up the tail and you check the butt. Some dogs might have like some small lumps and bumps, some dogs have had warts, and the other place that's always worth checking is like next to the anus. If there are like any holes or anything, because that's where on either side inside the dogs there's the anal glands, and if there are like any problems like infection or etc., then this is a place where you can sometimes spot like either a site of a small hole or abscess forming, so it's always worth checking either side, but Grumpy seems to be okay. Then for the girls, next step is a heat check. Again, check the area of the vulva. Is there any lumps or bumps? Then you open it up a bit, see if there's any discharge. Look at the either side of the vulva, any lumps or bumps. Some girls tend to get like a bit lumpy skin around. In Grumpy's case, you see there's no discharge. It's nice. So, and the last step is a belly check. Usually there are two people at the vet check. So there's one that holds the clipboard and holds the dog as the actual check. And sometimes when you're alone, then you have to find a way that you can check the belly and look at it. So what I usually do is first you slide your hands down, just feel the belly if there's any lumps, bumps, any place where the dog feels uneasy. And then you do a bit more thorough check. You check the armpits, because armpits and groin, this is a part this is a part where like skin infections, or if there are any extra parasites such as fleas or mites or etc., that's the part where the first affected, because like it's really warm, really close to the skin, really close to the blood vessels. So you check either of the armpits, you part the fur, again check for any sites of like changed skin such as redness, itchiness, any lesions or anything. In puppies it's really important when they usually can have scratches. And then the last part is for female to check the nipples. So you technically not only nipples but the whole gland, mammary gland, you just check if there are any lumps. In Grumpy's case you can feel like a small hardening, can't see that on camera of course. And then when you do the heat checks occasionally you can squeeze the nipple just a bit to see if the girl is lactating again. And it's good to check them all. If you like, for instance, if you have found one lump on the girl, and if it's especially if it's an older girl like Grumpy, then it's worth checking all the glands, because they're very prone, especially if they're not spayed at early age, they're prone to having mammary tumors. As for the boys, well, squeezing nipples won't do anything, but again, just worth checking. And then you let the dog down, and that's mainly it. You write up